Hello and welcome to Sovereign RPG. I am Sovereign. We're back in Myth of Empires today, and we're doing a little bit of an update on the court documents that have come out, and the ones that came out yesterday and the ones that came out today, and also a little bit on the announcement for the auto banning feature that's going to be coming into Myth of Empires over the next couple of days. But first, if you do enjoy my Myth of Empires content, make sure to like the video. If you'd like to be notified about all of your Myth of Empires content that you need to play the game, remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you want to support me and the channel, there is a link for Patreon in the description. And before we start, before we go through this actual documentation, I spoke to a friend of mine back in the UK who is actually, he works as a lawyer on copyright materials and all of that good stuff. When I did previous videos on the court updates, it's sort of like the way that people made it look, and they were screenshotting stuff and cutting stuff and putting it on the discords, it made it look like that this stuff was fact, and it made it look like this stuff was set in stone. The ones that have released previously that we've actually looked at haven't been signed by judges, and it hasn't been confirmed, and it's all basically been, according to my friend, throwing shit at a wall to see what stick. Now at the moment, it's just two groups of lawyers just shouting at each other, kind of like a pushing match in high school where you walk up, you're like boom, boom. Before someone hits someone, there's a lot of pushing going on, and it's starting to get to the point where now they're going to be pushing into the actual fight itself. So please keep in mind that none of this stuff is actual fact or proof as proved yet in a court. Whether you believe it is truth or not, whether you have looked at the code yourself and you've seen blah, 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 because there's accusations going from one side to the other. Angela and Imperium are saying that Snail Games and Wildcard have basically snipped a load of stuff together, put a load of codes together, and sort of made it look worse than it is, and made it look like it's actually copied word for word across the entire code. That's the accusation going from one side. The other accusation is Snail employees used to work for Wildcard back in the day, and they started creating the game before Angela was made while they were still working for Snail, but we'll go through that during this court document. This might be a little bit of a longer one because this court document is quite long. We're not going to go through all the exhibits and stuff because that stuff costs an absolute fortune to get access to, but we're just going to go through like the notes of what basically Snail's rebuttal is and their sort of counterclaim to the court after we spoke about the stuff where they were talking in the last video. So please do not take this wording as fact. Do not take it as set in stone. Do not take it as this has been signed by a judge and found guilty and it's etc, etc. This is just Snail throwing shit at a wall to see if it sticks somewhere. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. Whether it's true or not, my friend who works as a lawyer in the copyright sector, they don't know if it's true or not because the companies haven't been found guilty on either side. In the eyes of the law, it's still in the motion. So let's have a look at what we have here. Hopefully this is big enough. I'm going to try and get the whole page last time because I was doing the whole thing and I was talking through it and half the page was missing. So we're going to try and do it this way instead. This involves Snail's actual counterclaims of copyright infringement, contributory copyright infringement, vicarious copyright. How many copyright infringement types are there? I might have to ask my mate that. Actually, I probably don't want to ask him that. It's going to go on for about 4,000 miles of paper. There's going to be misappropriation of trade acts under 18 at USC. There's a misappropriation of trade secrets under Californian Civil Code. Now, I don't know if I'm going to continue going through every court case that does come up. I find it interesting personally to see what people are talking about. If you guys find that interesting, let me know down in the comments and I'll continue to do it. But I'm going to be trying to do it as an unbiased individual, which is kind of hard because I do love the game and I'm very happy with what the devs are doing in the game. So it's going to be hard for me to be unbiased. But I'm going to try and be as unbiased as possible. So as you can see, it's Angela Online is the plaintiffs, Snail Games USA and Wildcard Properties are the defendants. We got Snail Games doing the counterclaim and Angela Online Game counterclaim defendants. And then you've got, which is the most hilarious thing, Snail Games think they can go up against Tencent, like the biggest games vendor on the planet. Probably have more money than bloody Amazon. Nah, I don't think they have that much, but they're getting there. They're a very big company. So Snail Games are going as the plaintiff versus Tencent, who is the defendant. Like you'll find it later on. Like I mean, talk about punching up. This lawsuit arises because plaintiff Angela stole the extraordinarily valuable source code defendants Wildcard and Snail USA created for their popular video game Ark Survival Evolved. The game has sold over 40 million copies since its launch in 2015, generating gross revenue of over $700 million. I can believe it with the amount of DLC they came out, especially releasing DLC in the bloody early access. Snail USA is the owner of copyrights to the game, which copyrights specifically include its source code, see exhibits A, B, C, D, E, and F, indicating deposit of source code. All exhibits in this pleading are incorporated herein by reference. To make the game, Wildcard and Snail devoted years of effort, not that much because they just copy pasted a game from a engine and then added their own little bits to it. Neither here nor there, that's my personal opinion. That might not, like, I don't want to put up anyone's heckles for saying that, but that game was literally, it released in a very bad state, and it still is in a very bad state, server-wise and like sort of core-wise of the game. There's still a lot of issues in that game. So to make the game, Wildcard and Snail devoted years of effort, including the work of dozens of designers and engineers, and an investment of over $90 million. Until the game's United States distributor pulled it from the online sale on December 3rd, Angela and Imperium were profiting massively from their infringement by selling thousands of copies daily. Meanwhile, third-party defendant Tencent just chucking them in there, just like, you know what, we'll just bring this Chinese giant into the mix just because we feel like it and it's going to add to the headlines, who is hosting the United States server for thousands of users who play the game at the same time, has refused to comply with its obligations under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act to cease its facilitation of the infringement. That may be because its parent in China may directly or indirectly own a substantial interest in Angela. Now, if that's true, it's interesting, and I don't know personally, like if they have to bring the servers down. But if this comes into court and it's found out the sort of things are going on, we might see server downage. We might not see server downage. The game might continue on. This might just, again, it's just throwing shit at a wall. This misconduct began in November 2018 when someone who worked at Snail, USA's China-based parent Snail, obtained access to the Ark Survival source code. The code was stored on a Snail USA server located in the United States. Unbeknownst to Snail USA or Wildcard, this employee copied the code. Accusation, not fact, in a court of law, yet. The timing of this misconduct coincides precisely with when Angela contend work began on the infringing game in late 2018, shortly before Angela itself was formed in 2019. Angela then made nominal, though not untraceable modifications on the top of Wildcard's source code, replaced the skins and other visual assets, and packaged it into a video game titled Myth of Empires. Again, accusation, not fact. It is in the same genre as Ark Survival Evolved, just runs better. Angela launched the game in the United States on November 18, 2021. Its main point of US distribution is through the Steam game service owned by Valve Corporation. Soon after the game's launch, Wildcard noticed suspicious similarities to its own game. To investigate, it looked at the Myth of Empires code. But because source code is compiled into objective code, the executable file, Wildcard could see only higher level elements of the code and structure called headers. These are pretty similar to chapter headings in a book. Even so, Wildcard's review showed that in hundreds of cases, Angela copied the same headers and in the same order as it is if two books shared near verbatim tables of content, many pages long. That cannot result from independent creation, and contrary to Angela's attempt to fog over its theft, none of the duplication Wildcard has discovered pertains to the third-party game engine. We talked about this previously before, how Ark was created off of a shootergame.exe, which is a standard base game in the Unreal Engine, actual engine itself. When they were creating a game, they used this base game and they built off of that. Now it seems that Angela has actually turned around and said, well, we did the same thing as you did, which is why there's so many similarities. Again, accusations on both sides. There's not been proved in a court of law yet. In Angela's haste to profit from its larceny, I mean, like, this person is a dramatic as hell. Angela has also neglected to remove non-functional portions of Wildcard's code. These portions include distinctly identifiable log messages or comments, as well as other Wildcard code that does not appear to be running within Myth of Empires, but nevertheless remains in its executable code. This is something to do with the sort of water pipes that are still in the code in Myth of Empires when we don't use them. Wildcard has located those stranded relics in the Myth of Empires code, absent Angela's copy, and there is no way to explain their presence in Angela's game code. Equally appalling, a Wildcard vendor who wrote unique code modules specifically for Ark Survival Evolved has told Wildcard that in some code modules appear in Angela's pirated game, verbatim. Verbatim is such a weird word. The only place to find that code is in the Wildcard source code. Here too, it would be impossible for Angela to have independently written the identical code line for line over and over again. Again, accusations. Please don't take this as fact. It's just a lawyer doing his lawyery stuff. As such, Angela is a plaintiff in name only. It filed this lawsuit only after Snail USA sent Angela's United States distributor, Valve, a fully justifiable and fully compliant takedown notice pursuant to the DMCA on December 1st. Snail USA attached an 11-page side-by-side comparison of its Ark Survival Evolved code to the available portions of Angela's code. See Exhibit G. This is the one where they've accused them of actually just snipping bits of code out of the whole line and then putting them together to make it look worse. Again, accusation. In response to the DMCA takedown notice on December 3rd, Valve removed Angela's infringing game. Angela filed this lawsuit a few days later, seeking declarations of non-infringement and non-misappropriation of Wildcard and Snail USA's trade secrets in the source code. As alleged in more detail in the balance of this pleading, however, I'm losing my voice. As alleged in more detail in the balance of this pleading, however, Angela and its distributor, Imperium, have no right to any such declaration. They are pirates, they are thieves, and they know it. It's just dramatic as hell. This is like watching one of those bloody court movie films. Angela is no stranger to Wildcard and Snail USA's Ark Survival Evolved game and source code, which admittedly, if they're no stranger to it, then there obviously will be similarities in it. Normal. Of the 82 Angela employees listed in the credits for Myth of Empires, 60 of them are ex-employees of Snail. Many quit in 2019 and 2020 to join Angela. One such ex-Snail employee is Yang Li Ping. In December 2018, Snail USA decided to give its parent company Snail China a copy of the Ark Survival Evolved source code as a backup, just in case the server storing the code suffered a catastrophic failure. In order to accomplish this backup, Mr. Yang, then an employee of Snail China, received access to the Ark Survival Code base, which was stored on a server located in the United States, the Exhibit H. It would have taken Mr. Yang only a few minutes to copy the code onto a thumb drive and walk off with it. Again, accusations, no proof. That December 2018 date has further significance to establishing Angela's theft. Angela asserts that it began development of its game in 2018 and demonstrated a pre-release version in 2020, which it alleges somehow disproves its use of Wildcard and Snail USA's code. But those statements cannot be true. First, as noted above, Angela admittedly did not exist in 2018. If Mr. Yang and other Snail employees were working with the Ark code to build Myth of Empires in 2018, they were doing so while employed by Snail. Their conduct violated their obligations to their employer and the results and proceeds of their effort. The Myth of Empires game belongs to Snail. Yeah, think about that for a second. This is what I mean by they're attacking from all different angles to try and get something to stick in what they're trying to say. Snail and Wildcard intend to pursue these matters in discovery and reserve their right to amend their counterclaim and third-party complaint as necessary. Second, Angela appears to not have spoken to Mr. Yang about his conduct, or perhaps he failed to tell them what he had done. He obtained access to Wildcard's Ark Survival Evolved code in 2018, not in 2020. Thus, Angela's claim that it had already developed a game when Mr. Yang accessed the Ark code cannot be true. Angela's recent conduct further confirms that Angela has acted unlawfully and that Angela knows that. In the 2 weeks following Snail's December 1st DMCA notice, Angela has scrambled to cover its theft. Angela has repeatedly revised its Myth of Empires code, removing or revising code headers and other copied elements. Again, accusation, they've been adding and they've been doing a lot of updates and stuff. Now, like, I'm not trying to sit on one side of the wall. I'm not trying to stand there and defend Angela. I don't know if what they did it or they didn't do it. No one knows if they did or didn't do it apart from Angela themselves, at least until it's been proven. Now, in many cases, Angela has modified the same copied elements Snail USA had discovered and included in its DMCA notice to Valve, Tencent, and of course, Angela. Angela had no reason to do this other than to erase evidence of its misconduct. That is disturbing enough on its own, but is even more alarming because it follows service on Angela and its attorneys of two detailed notices of their legal obligation to preserve evidence. On December 7th, Snail USA and Wildcard sent a cease and desist letter to Angela that also notified them of their duty to preserve documents and other evidence, including the original Myth of Empires source code. Angela did not respond. On December 10th, the day after Angela filed this lawsuit, Snail USA and Wildcard sent Angela's attorneys a follow-up document preservation notice, despite repeated requests that Angela confirm it has maintained the code in its entirety and in form it existed when Angela launched the game on November 18th. Angela's lawyers have not responded. That is conspicuous, given that Angela's lawyers have sent emails during this period on other issues. Discovery will reveal whether Angela has spoliated key evidence. Now, there's plenty of people out there who are unhappy with their personal stuff being looked at. They don't want their text messages looked at. They don't want their calls being listened to. They don't want to have any of their personal stuff, even if it's not like important. They don't want their like personal stuff being shown to a third party. They're well within their right to say they don't want to show their source code. It could look bad, and I guess it does look bad, but it's not necessarily guilt. It's not necessarily proof of guilt. It's just them saying, we don't want a third party looking at our stuff. I don't want you looking in my window, thank you very much. Were there any lingering doubt that Angela knows it has been caught stealing Snail and Wildcard's source code, Angela laid that to rest by refusing Snail USA's proposal that Angela submit its source code to a neutral expert for comparison to the Ark Survival source code. As we spoke about earlier, they don't need to do that. I mean, unless the court tells them, bring that source code in, let's see it, put it on the table. They don't have to do anything like that. I mean, it's up to them. It's their choice. Might look damning, might not. People might see it as their freedom to do so. Other people are like, well, if they're hiding it, it's got to be guilty. Who knows? Those same people that I've seen saying that complain about their own freedom. So it's kind of a bit hypocritical. So we're in the last bit now. We won't be too much longer. Snail USA made the first of these requests on December 10th, the day after Angela filed this case. Snail USA requested that Angela state his acceptance by December 13th, which they didn't. Instead of leaping at the chance to exonerate itself, Angela responded on December 13th by throwing up roadblocks to the independent review. Fair enough. First, Angela demanded to first see the evidence that Snail USA deposited source code when it applied for copyright. Second, Angela would not agree that the comparison would be made to its code as it existed on November 18th before the dispute arose. Third, to ensure that the comparison would be pointless, Angela insisted that it be limited to just 5 modules that Snail USA would identify in advance. Snail USA and Wildcard have already identified copying many more than just 5 modules, typically referred to as object classes. Given Angela's post-DMCA takedown notice attempts to cover its tracks by removing and tweaking the copy code, the only way to ensure that Angela has not acted unlawfully is to compare complete working code bases in the precise state they had released their respective game, with no opportunity to hide the evidence. Snail USA provided Angela with source code deposit confirmations on December 17th and repeated its request that Angela submits its code for neutral comparison. Snail requested that Angela confirm its willingness to participate in the independent review by December. Through the filing of this pleading, Angela has remained silent. These are not acts of an innocent party. They are calculated steps of a desperate pirate scrambling to avoid the legal consequences of its massive infringement of Snail and Wildcard's intellectual property. Angela is entitled to no relief from this court. Instead, as alleged below, Angela deserves to be held account and punished severely by this. Literally, like, that whole thing was like watching a movie with, I don't know, some lawyer going absolutely mental with a jury, making them believe and saving the case at the last minute. It was very dramatic. And basically the answer to this they answer each allegation. Like, they basically say, like, loads of times, on that basis, deny them. On that basis, deny them. Then there's defendants admit the allegations set forth therein on number 4. Again, there's more of this, like, they're a Florida-based company and they're a limited liability company. And there's, again, there's more deny the allegations. So it's like, it's all the way across that is that. And like, there's no there's no fact to any of their allegations. They're basically trying to scare them into giving information they don't have to give because they don't have any proof, like enough proof to push it in court. And after that, I've got a really dry throat. That was a lot of reading for me, but there's some interesting stuff there. Remember, if you would like me to carry on talking about the court documents and do episodes on this as they come out and keep people updated, I will. I find it really interesting myself to find out what's going on and the sort of political court dance that's going on between the sets of lawyers. Now they've brought Tencent, dragged Tencent into it, so it's going to be an even bigger fight. Tencent can throw like an army of lawyers at the shit if they fancy it. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. Let me know down in the comments what you feel about all of this, whether these accusations could be true, whether they could be false. Even though, like, you have to understand that factually these are just accusations. They have not been accepted by a court of law in the US where this is going on yet. That may change if some evidence comes to light, and if it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. This could be bad for the game if it does go to a court. There may be things taken down. The court might tell Tencent to take down the servers, etc. This is the worst case scenario. Then if Snail wins the actual court case, then they could take the game over like they did with the Wild West game and just shelve it so there's no competition. Or they could take over the game and distribute it themselves, and we all know that the Ark hasn't exactly got the best dev team in order to work on this project, because they haven't been able to work on their own project over the years very well, at least in my opinion, with the amount of bugs and issues that the game has. Ark Survival and Atlas being even worse than Ark when it comes to bugs and stupidness. But that's it. That's all we have for today. I want to thank you all for listening to me drone on about these court documents. I hope you found some of this information useful, found it enlightening, had a bit of fun reading some of the dramatic words of the Snail lawyers. Remember to like and sub if you do enjoy my Myth of Empires content. Fly safe and avoid local chat scams.